Good evening and welcome to APTN National News Weekend. I'm Brittany Hobson. On the East Coast, a Mikmaw fisher is in trouble for harvesting snow crab to feed his community, but not for a moderate livelihood. Angel Moore starts us off tonight with this story.
Last weekend, Robert Sillyboy of Sabaganagati First Nation and his crew dropped 10 traps in the deep waters of the Atlantic Ocean in hopes of catching snow crab for his community while a Coast Guard vessel was nearby.
Crab's pretty expensive. How many people on a reserve do you think could actually afford to go out and buy it? And it dawned on me, there's no way you can actually eat crab as a Mikmaw person unless you go to a store and buy it. And I think that's absolutely wrong.
Sillyboy informed the Department of Fisheries he was fishing snow crab under the Sparrow Decision, a Supreme Court of Canada ruling in 1990 that upheld the Aboriginal right to fish for food purposes. But 2 traps were missing before they returned to shore.
And they're taking our traps so we can't fish, and they're stopping us from providing for ourselves, for our own food. So yeah, we went out to challenge that and to show kind of what we're up against.
Chief Mike Sack wrote a letter in support of the food fishery. It said Sillyboy will be fishing crab for food social ceremonies on behalf of Sabaganagati First Nation. Because the 2 traps were seized, Chief Sack is considering legal action.
They completely overstepped now. It's very well documented in court and such that we have a right to that food social ceremonial, on the land or the sea. And I think DFO really slipped up on this one. And
Sillyboy's brother, Mike Willis, has been fishing for about the last 6 years.
It's in our right. We're here doing what we're supposed to be doing. There's nothing wrong with it.
It's Sillyboy's boat, but Alan Corporon is aboard because he's a licensed captain. He has mentored Sillyboy for the last 3 years. He's Acadian and supports the Mikmaw fishery, which has sometimes made him the target of fellow Acadians.
Not as bad as the natives have. People call us names, but I just walk away and ignore it.
The traps came up empty. Fishing under the constant watch of the feds is a distraction to a successful catch.
I promised the community a feed, so I'm a man of my word. I'm going back out, but I guess it's back to the drawing board right now.
The trip out to sea took over 24 hours and cost about $4,000. But Sillyboy and his crew will continue to fish, because when he does, the community will have a feast. Angel Moore, APTN National News, East Coast of Nova Scotia.
The clock is ticking for an Algonquin community in Quebec to either accept or reject a 2-year moratorium on moose hunting. But as Lindsay Richardson explains, the community is divided.
Quebec gave the Algonquin Nation until tomorrow, April 15th, to take a good look at the agreement in principle they tabled earlier this month regarding moose hunting near their ancestral territory. Except the newly elected Band Council at Barrier Lake decided last week the proposed agreement was too limiting. And since then, more and more people are going on record to say Council's holdout could compromise the whole deal.
When the news came out with the public press release that was released from the Barrier Lake Council, a lot of us felt very devastated, disappointed, very sad, because it was going back to something that was not working from the community.
Shannon Chief is a member of the Wolf Clan of Barrier Lake. She's assisted in the on-the-ground demonstrations there for the last 2 years. And while newly elected Chief Tony N.W.T agrees moose need protection, he wants to revive a previous agreement that protects against other exploitation on their territory. Community members say this decision to withdraw from negotiations was made too quickly.
The youth are also taking a very big stand by questioning the new leadership today. What is the future going to be like? Are we going back to the trilateral agreement? Are we? What's going on with the moose moratorium? Why are you not signing it? And they're not really getting much response from the council in regards to that.
We're not really brought into the little details, everything in between for the agreement.
Alan Ratt was chosen to speak on behalf of the community's youth council.
when they say something about the land, it's always don't sell out the land. And I think that's all that needs to be said.
We reached out to Chief N.W.T, but his stance remains the same, even after a week of community meetings.
For sure, I reached out to the negotiator and say, listen, the elders were saying, let's meet each other. Let's get an understanding. But let's take a look at what our elders worked on. You know, and there needs to be a lot of education around that. Around the implementation agreement.
Chief says she hopes her community and the nation as a whole can find common ground, even if not ahead of Thursday's meeting with Quebec.
Really divided our community and it divided our nation. So we have very high hopes to kind of take this agreement in principle as a step to start rebuilding, the nation as one.
Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
A Dene man in the Northwest Territories is speaking out over the government seizing caribou meat and, according to him, infringing on his traditional harvesting rights. Charlotte Jacobs has this story.
You won't find caribou in Malcolm Jabe's freezer. The Clicho man and longtime hunter is accused of illegally harvesting caribou this January in a no-hunting zone. He's fighting the charges from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources.
So you could see the caribou kill spot versus the gut pile. So where the gut pile is, we dragged it from there down here to where our vehicles were. The line, apparently, after we had looked at the map, the line comes down across. So we were just right above that line.
Jabe says he stopped in the ENR station along the Winter Road and asked ENR for a map, but was not given one. And instead, an officer told him he could go hunt on the north end of McKay Lake. He maintains he shot and skinned 7 caribou in an area permissible for hunting, but transported the animals to gut them closer to camp, where he unknowingly at the time was in the no-hunting zone.
The people around me that have suffered, that were waiting for the animals, the elders, my family, we have empty freezers because of this.
Jabe's case is scheduled to be heard in a Yellowknife courtroom in May. So he was surprised when he received this letter.
It is the N.W.T's position that it's not practical to maintain the caribou in their custody, as there is no freezer space available to store this large number of caribou. And given this caribou is likely to deteriorate or further deteriorate in their custody. This matter will be heard on Monday, April 12th, 2021 at 3 p.m. If you wish to appear in person, you can appear in courtroom 102 in Yellowknife. So I went and I represented myself. I had explained the situation to the Justice of Peace. I have not been legally convicted of any felon. So for them to try to give away my caribou, the evidence is beyond me. I feel so disrespected. I am hurt.
On April 12th, the Justice of the Peace awarded Jabe 2 caribou.
I had called ENR asking that I would like to receive, like I'd like to go there and inspect the animals that I have harvested. They said no. They told me no, flat out no, we'll get back to you.
APTN reached out to ENR to ask about storage of confiscated meat, but did not receive a response by airtime. APTN News will follow up as this story develops. Charlotte Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Time now for our first break. Coming up, a community pleading for help after a series of shootings. Welcome back. A Saskatchewan community welcomed a young boy home last week. As Priscilla Wolf reports, he was lost to the child welfare system for over 8 months.
This Mistawasas Nihiawak mother lost her 10-year-old son to the child welfare system in the midst of her battle with meth. But she won her fight with addictions, and when she did, her community stepped up to the battle for the return of her child from an off-reserve foster home. under the Ministry of Social Services back to this community. That happened in early April. We have to hide their identity for privacy reasons because the file remains open.
It shouldn't have happened to where my son left the reserve, his homeland, you know.
Mr. Wass's Nihiyawak held a welcome home ceremony for the boy to help his spirit return to the community. The mother has completed treatment, is sober, and working on her sobriety. She has a message for parents who are currently struggling with addictions.
Well, to all the moms and the dads that are sitting there under the influence of alcohol or drugs, you know, that's not who you are, that's just something you do. Don't let the ministry get to you. Your children need you. Don't give up.
Deanna Ledoux, who was asked by Chief Darrell Watson of Mr. Wass's Nihiyawak to be the boy's advocate, says it's important to keep kids in care on reserve, and she was happy to help bring him home to his mom.
I was contacted by the chief of this nation and appointed as the young man's advocate. Every chief has the right to appoint either a band designate or an advocate, and in this case the family went to the chief with concerns regarding the file and how it was being handled, and they asked for help, and how he helped them was by appointing me.
Saskatchewan's Ministry of Social Services has been trying to work with First Nations to keep children on reserve, but many still are in child welfare custody in non-Indigenous homes and communities. Mr. Wass's Nihiyawak plans to fix that for their own children at least. Bill C-92 was passed in 2019. The legislation aims to reduce the number of youth in care and enables First Nations to create their own welfare systems to bring and keep their youth home. The First Nation is working on their own legislation under Bill C-92 to make sure if children need to be apprehended, they will be in the care of the community and based on community standards, not provincial or federal legislation. In this case, on-reserve foster families were not utilized, and he was placed in 2 different group homes off reserve.
In regards to this particular file, I was confused as to why the province or MSS had the file when there is an agency designated for this nation. And the chief's issue was that the boy was removed from the nation.
Ledoux adds when First Nations regain jurisdiction of child welfare matters, it will stop the separation of children from their homes and communities. This community hopes to take back that power soon.
They're not serving our children. They need to be reviewed. With the new child welfare system, with nations taking over their own agencies and taking their children back, I think that will make a difference, but that doesn't undo the damage that has been done to generations of children that have grown up in care.
Be with family. This is your home. You're never going to leave here like that.
The mother hopes she's not the last parent in her community to enjoy a reunion like this, and that other kids never have to leave when they're in care.
I think he's more damaged in the ministry process than he was in the drug addiction process.
Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Mr. Wass's Nihiyawak.
A series of shootings on a First Nation in Alberta has residents worried. One man was fatally shot by RCMP and 4 others were wounded in a non-RCMP related shooting. Tamara Pimentel brings us this.
Shots fired.
This video was taken by a member of the Ochese First Nation shortly after a 24-year-old man was fatally shot by RCMP. Lena Firth says that man was her grandson, Trent Firth, who she says she raised since he was 4 years old.
It's been very scary. People are afraid.
In a release, Rocky Mountain House RCMP said officers were responding to a complaint of a disturbance at a residence on April 3rd. When they arrived, they encountered a known individual who went back into the home, closing the door. It said police checks confirmed that the individual had outstanding warrants. The man then exited the home with this axe and a confrontation ensued. The officer discharged several rounds from his service pistol, striking the man. He was pronounced deceased on scene. By the time Lena Firth arrived to her grandson's home, Trent was already on the ground.
But I seen 2 police cars there. And as I got out of my van, I started running towards his house. And I seen him laying on the ground. He didn't have a shirt on.
She admits Trent was known to police and says his actions may have been a result of fetal alcohol syndrome.
He was very quiet, but as he grew older, like he was FASD. When he got tested, they found that he was brain damaged a little bit. He's quiet, but he's been in trouble with the police for about a year maybe.
RCMP say they can't comment on this incident as it's being investigated by the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team.
Right now everybody is in a sad state and very emotional.
Ochis resident Douglas Bonays says community members are on edge because after this incident, 3 shootings occurred within an hour on April 5th on both the Sunchild and Ochis First Nations. It wasn't police related, but 4 men were injured and are now in stable condition. 28-year-old Keith Beaverbones and 19-year-old Zachary Yellowface have both been charged with 4 counts of attempted murder. RCMP say they can't comment on this event either as it's before the court. But members here say this could have been prevented.
We have a lot of people that are crying out for help. We have a lot of people that are wondering what to do, where to go.
Darcy Goodrunning says young people on reserve need more support. He says before the pandemic, he and Bonays ran classes on traditional songs and dance to keep youth off the streets and connected to their culture. But now
we don't have no powwows anywhere. Round dances also, that's been put on hold. So what is there for the youth to do out here? What is there for the people to do?
Too much of this has been happening, too much. And we can blame everybody, even the government, but you know, there's no jobs here for nobody. There's nothing here.
While Bonays and Goodrunning call for better services and a better relationship between RCMP and First Nations, Firth seeks answers about her grandson's death.
What I don't understand is why did they have to shoot him like that? They could have tased him, but they shot him.
APTN reached out to the Ochis Chief and Council for comment. We were unable to reach them. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Ochis First Nation.
A Cree hockey player from Manitoba will be representing Canada at the Under-18 World Hockey Championship later this month. More on that after the break. A tribal council in Manitoba is rebuilding an old apartment block in Winnipeg. It's part of an affordable housing project for young people aging out of the child welfare system. Daryl Stranger has more.
This burned-down, abandoned building may not look like much right now, but it will soon have 18 new apartment units for young people aging out of the Child and Family Services system in Winnipeg.
The 18 suites, we could probably fill these up next week with young people that are currently looking for places to stay.
The Shawinigan Abenuje organization is part of the Southeast Tribal Council in Manitoba. They received just under $3 million from the federal government's Rapid Housing Initiative to buy the building. They're calling it their Mamengo program. Mamengo is Anishinaabe for butterfly.
Leaving a home at age 18 is difficult enough if you have no supports. So what the Mamengo tries to do is tries to extend that the wing of support around young people that are getting to adult age, and sometimes they're having children already and they're still needing support, whether going to school or going to work, finding independence in their own place.
Construction started 2 weeks ago. The goal is to have people in the building by December. Brandy Cole is Mamengo's project manager. She says the revamped building isn't just about apartments.
The top 3 floors of this building are going to be 18 apartments. 6 of them are 2 bedrooms, so we'll be able to house up to 24 young people. The lower level is going to be resource space, so we'll have some programming rooms, a cultural space, we'll have a computer area for our young people, a teaching kitchen, so there will be a lot of learning, sharing, and growing and healing in that kind of space down there.
Cole hopes this initiative will be part of the bigger picture of ending homelessness.
A lot of our homeless population has experienced time in CFS care, and a lot of our homeless population who was in CFS care experienced homelessness within a year of aging out of care. So if we can fill in the supports in that gap of time, then I think we have a better chance of preventing homelessness long term.
Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A young man from a Sepoistic Cree Nation in Manitoba will be competing at the World Under-18 Hockey Championships in a few weeks. Here's Daryl Stranger again with more on the rising star.
Got it to Roulette. Roulette, the slot fires, he shots, scored! Connor Roulette on the power play. Comes across.
Connor Roulette may only be 17 years old, but his skills on the ice have been touted as an elite NHL prospect. Roulette was one of 23 players recently named to the Under-18 Canadian men's team to play at the U18 World Hockey Championships in Frisco, Texas. The Seattle Thunderbirds forward from Mississippiwistic Cree Nation in Manitoba says he's excited to wear the red and white jersey on the international stage.
Obviously, I was really excited. I texted my dad and my mom right after, and I kind of had to keep it on the down low for a bit. But once that all got out, I was just really happy and really excited. A lot of the people that kind of came up and, with their support and kind of reached out to me and really meant a lot. And, just all the people that have helped me get to where I am, and just really looking forward to getting there and playing.
Roulette's mother, Tanis Cook, says it wasn't easy seeing her child leave home at such a young age. She says she knew early on Connor would have to leave home, and it's eased her knowing he's having success doing what he loves.
I think I started preparing myself for him to move away at a young age, like a long time ago. So, and I mean, when somebody loves the game of hockey as much as Connor does, like me as a parent, as much as I miss him when he's here, I know that he's over there doing something that he absolutely loves. So it makes it a lot easier.
Roulette relishes the opportunity to be a role model for other Indigenous youth.
Just the support I get through is just so awesome, and to be in that role model setting, it's really good. I know there's a lot of kids out there that have reached out to me before that are Indigenous little kids, and it just feels so good. And just to be representing not only my family but every Indigenous kid in Canada, it's truly an honor, and it's just something I like to take pride in, really show it out and be proud of who I am.
Roulette is currently quarantining in Seattle before flying to Frisco, Texas, where the team will quarantine for another 4 days before the tournament kicks off there, April 26th. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Congrats, Connor. That's all your APTN National News for Weekend Edition. For more Indigenous news, visit us online at aptnnews.ca and on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at APTN News. I'm Brittany Hobson. Have a great rest of your weekend.